broadcast network, AfterBuzz TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AfterBuzz TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the AfterBuzz TV Halt and Catch Fire After Show. I'm your host, Isaac Johnson, and joining me this season...
Bam! Here I am, Dave Abed, Isaac. Thrilled to be here.
Absolutely, that's awesome, man. This is a great show. We're going to jump into season 2. But before we jump into that and listen to this awesome music written by Paul Hasslinger,
nice.
We want to hear from you. Keep sending your tweets and comments. We do read every one of them, and don't miss the chance to take our very important listener survey at podcast1.com. Your responses will help make the show the very best it could be, and it only takes about 3 minutes of your time. You can send us your feedback, your honest criticism.
We want to hear from you.
Yeah, we absolutely want to hear
You're
from you.
our family that we've never met.
Yes.
Yeah. You're like the drunk uncle.
Yeah.
Yeah, or the prison uncle.
Very, very, very good.
Is that out for that one?
Yeah, I think so.
Great. One I have here, Dance Battle America. Ever seen it? I haven't, but I hear it's great.
I've heard great things.
It's a Maria Menounos and Jillian Huff show, and they want you to be a part of it, audience. So you can send in your crazy dance videos for a chance to be a part of the show. So if you want to maybe be on a show with Maria Menounos and Jillian Huff, go to dancebattlecasting.com, shake your booty, use some hashtag DanceBattleABC, and who knows, you could be on a national television show. It's that easy and that hard at the same time. There's a sexual joke to be made there, but I'm not going to make it.
We're going to avoid that.
We're going to avoid it for now.
So we're going to be recapping episode 1 and episode 2. Dave and I had some scheduling conflicts, so we couldn't get together for episode 1 last week, but here we are, going to mash them in together.
We're mashing.
Yes. There's another sexual joke there.
We're just going to rack them up in the beginning of the show and then name them all off at the end.
I got a feeling you got a couple more.
Sure, I'm sure I do.
Episode 1, titled SETI, which, if you don't know, search for extraterrestrial intelligence, or the idea of making contact, is the name of this episode. I thought this episode was pretty cool. A really good way to jump into the new season, especially if you haven't watched season 1. They sort of had a bit of a soft reboot here, and a bit of a time jump to 1985, which I thought was pretty cool. If you're going to have a time jump to any point in time, 1985 is pretty good.
I was insulted because I was born in 84, so I thought, in a way, maybe they were paying homage to my birth. They said, you know what, that's the biggest thing that happened then, so we're going to
quite possibly. Yeah. But as we know, Marty McFly is from 1985. I figured that was pretty good.
Maybe that could be it. And we'll say this off the top of the show. I have not seen season 1,
right? And
so instead of lying to our audience, we just thought I'll take the perspective of what may be a few of the viewers who did not see season 1, and I will be their allies during this season.
So, what do you think of the first episode?
You know, it definitely took me kind of a few minutes. I really didn't know much about the show, so it took me a few minutes to understand where everybody was coming from. I thought the first thing I noticed was that, let's see, Cameron and the other dude, not Joe, but Gordon, were husband and wife, or no, it was Donna and Gordon were husband and wife in Argo.
Yes.
Which was the first thing I noticed. I was like, these guys have done this before.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty cool.
But besides that, I mean, it definitely gave me, we were talking about this before, Silicon Valley. It's like a more serious Silicon Valley. It definitely has that AMC aesthetic look.
Yeah.
But with an USA, we were saying, kind of feeling.
Yeah, a little bit of that.
So the writing is good, and I'm just kind of interested to see, what is the crux. You know, maybe you can tell me briefly, what is the crux of the show? What keeps a person coming back episode after episode, do you think?
Sure. Well, I mean, I like that last season we mainly had the Gordon and Joe, or it sort of revolved around those two building their own personal PC, which was a brand new thing like that in 1983 that hadn't really been done before. They were essentially kind of cloning an IBM computer and making a better, more personalized version of that, which is where Cameron came into play. And then you had Donna, who was probably smarter than her husband Gordon, kind of sort of prodding him in the background, which was cool. What I like about this new episode starting off, which we can get into sort of Cameron and
let's do
Donna, but that it seems like the focus of the season is going to be having our two female leads sort of lead and see where they go with success this season. Which they're at Mutiny. Mutiny was something that was started by Cameron at the end of season 1 after a big sort of hubbub and their sort of computer being stolen from, or the idea for their computer being stolen from Cardiff Electric last year by their direct competition. So she decided to start her own online gaming system, I guess, which was also new at the time. That's something that had never been done before.
Isn't it crazy that it was 1985 that things were happening? Because I can remember when I was, maybe 7, 8, which would have been mid-90s. It seemed so new then. And to think that these things were happening in the mid-'80s.
Right,
It's almost like I feel like where I was in Michigan. I guess maybe things didn't get to Michigan that early. But it is crazy how long this stuff has been around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I thought that was cool. I thought that... I mean, basically, like, they have a few online gaming sort of systems, and they have subscribers that pay, like, I guess, per month or something. Maybe like $5 a month. I don't know how much.
Which
money.
is like a $10,000 now or something.
I think that's the exact.
That's the exact equation.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's accurate. But Parallax is their big online game. But we've got them going through issues like system crashes, power outages, having enough power, siphoning it off the neighbors. And Cameron sort of not necessarily caring how they get it because she's more of a creative than a builder.
Yeah, she's almost overly sassy. I mean, she's almost.
That was her MO last season.
Was it? Okay.
Being pretty sassy.
Yeah, and it's like they had that whole fight about it was in the first episode, right? About who we need a boss, and she's like, I don't want any boss.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And it just, I don't know. I was like. If you care about your business, don't you want these things to go well? Don't you see a need? But I guess that's just part of her character development. Is she's too wrapped up in it to even see kind of outside the box?
Yeah, I kind of wondered that. That was my specific question about the episode, which it's funny, there was a Facts of Life reference to Mrs. Garrett in the episode when Rick was at the back of the van trying to sell them the not actual XTs, the debunked XTs there. But more like the theme of between the two of them was like, who's the boss? So I thought there should have been some sort of semantic.
You missed a who's the boss reference there.
Exactly.
Right.
But I also appreciated the Mrs. Garrett reference. But I thought about that, and I thought that I'm losing my thought here. But why doesn't Cameron want to be a boss? Is it maybe just some sort of like philosophy that she has? Like last season, Mutiny, like she had like a sort of like call to arms or whatever you want to call it, where she's like, there's no boss here, no one has a title, we all just work here and we're going to make something creative and awesome. So she's sort of more focused on that. Even the PC that they were building last season it wasn't just that it was going to be a faster computer or your own computer, is that it was going to have a soul and a personality.
Right.
Which is what they didn't accomplish in that computer, sort of the idea for the computer being stolen. They ended up creating a faster computer, but it was basically soulless and just like a different color.
Right.
So she was highly disappointed in that. But my thought is, well, is there something she's specifically afraid of?
Yeah. Yeah, it seems so, because I've been at places that there's no boss, and it's tough because when things go wrong, who do you turn to, and who's the person that yells at the other person? Right. And you can see that's obviously going to be evolving, and maybe even in the third episode it will, because it's showing that you can't run a successful business if someone's not at the top.
Right.
Maybe she's scared to be there.
And that's what I think.
Yeah.
I think it's more of a fear response than like I just don't believe in bosses or something like that.
But why? I wonder why she wouldn't want maybe Donna to just be the. But you think because she didn't start it?
I don't know that Donna wants to be it either. She has that whole thing about like, I don't want to be the mom here, but she essentially has to be.
She has to be, yeah.
Because no one else will do it. But I think that's a fair point that Cameron brings up to her. Says, well, no one asked you to.
Right. I hear that, and I always think that's such a frustrating thing. It's like nobody asked you to, but like, you have this sense of responsibility. If you care about the business and you see somebody else not doing it, somebody has to. So that's what Cameron is definitely showing. She's definitely the rebel of the show. She dresses the rebel, as we saw in episode 2, and she's dressing like a hitchhiker.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, that's pretty much how she dressed all last season too.
And but I think it's good that they show what the consequences are. Like there's positives in being that, creative positives, I'm sure, but there's you can't. And I think there's plenty of people like this in real life. You know, being the like whatever person only works for so long, and somebody has to be the yin to that yang, or else it's chaos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought Donna brought up a fair point. I mean, she does throw it back. Cameron throws it back in her face to say, "No one asked you to do it." Well, if I don't do it, who's going to do it?
Right.
Otherwise, we're basically in a tank. They're not even zoned for commercial, use or whatever in that house. If someone doesn't do this stuff, it's not going to get done. And they're basically babysitting children with all those coders in the house.
Right. I know. It's so funny, the parallels between this show and Silicon Valley. They have the exact same episode on Silicon Valley. The whole power went out on the whole block as well.
Right.
But yeah, and they even dress the same. But it's just funny that I think it just shows that it's hard to do a show about computers and coding without using a lot of stereotypes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and to make it, a broader point, and then we can move on with the episode, but it's hard to make computer coding sexy and entertaining.
Yeah.
And so you see that they have to work really hard because you can't be too technical because they're going to lose us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you have and it's hard doing anything in the 80s because we're in such a culture now that's looking forward. It can be hard to look back in computers specifically. So it's just interesting to see the different devices that they use.
Yeah. Well, and I think too that a lot of the things that they're wrestling with and like using, like Donna discovers the online chat thing that people stay on the game for that specifically, even when they're not playing
That was
the
cool,
game.
wasn't it? Because you're like, oh wow, the beginning.
Yeah, well, and I think that some of that's relatable to what we're dealing with nowadays, like the fact that people were, at that point connecting online, but is that somehow making them more isolated, And we have the same sort of themes coming up with like social media now, Instagram and Twitter and all these sort of things that sort of like connect us better, but also isolate us at the same time.
And I was thinking about in college how I was asking girls out over AIM. That's what it shocked me. I was like, cool, nice to meet you. Can I get your AIM?
Oh my gosh.
Remember those days?
Yeah. Actually, I don't. That was
right before
my time.
Sure.
I wasn't born in the 80s.
No, that's were.
Well, and before we move on from them, but I thought the scene with Rick, the guy that was selling them the whack XTs in the back of the van there.
Yeah.
I thought that they had a real moment when they talked in the bar. They sort of resolved that whole like who's going to be the boss sort of thing.
Right.
And that they needed to work together, which is important for these two characters that seem like they're going to lead our whole season here to sort of come to an understanding there.
Yeah.
But I loved seeing her like kind of get roughed up by the dude in the bar. I was a little bit surprised
that nobody does anything.
Yeah,
and like they're in public.
Yeah.
And the fact that they can't, like this guy, obviously they built him up to be like, oh, this guy's kind of dangerous.
Yeah.
But then they steal all of his stuff and drive away, and there's going to be no repercussions?
Yeah, well, I did like, I don't know, it felt like Thelma and Louise or something like that. When she stole his keys and they're like running with those computers all fast to the car or whatever. Like, it was a really good, like, moment to cheer for them because they finally...
It was, but then you think, like, if this was Breaking Bad, the next 7 episodes, this guy would be the villain, and he'd follow them to their house.
Absolutely.
So it's just interesting. It's just one of those shows where you just kind of have to say, okay, I get it. Like, this is going to be fun. Here's a device to make these women seem more powerful.
Yeah, to give us something for them to accomplish together. Yeah. I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Gordon. Gordon, last season, we talked about that he... Well, basically... Joe had used his character to build the PC they wanted because Joe realized how valuable Gordon was. He sort of had hunted him down specifically while he was working at Cardiff Electric. And, the idea was that we're going to clone this computer and build this amazing machine, which it ended up getting stolen, or the idea ended up getting stolen. So now they built this essentially just boring version of the PC. And I also think the time jump was important because that happened in 1983. Now we're in 1985. And instead of making season 2 about building the Giant Pro, because they built the Giant, now they have the Giant Pro, which is basically everyone's saying like, yeah, it's pretty good.
Right.
It's not awful.
Right.
It's a slight improvement on that one.
I get that a lot about just me and my personality.
Yeah.
So I had a lot in common.
Was that the text you got from your mom?
Yeah. And all the AIM chats I had as well.
Exactly. Yeah. But, I thought it was cool to have that time jump forward and see Gordon, who was in a place of not sort of being the guy in charge. At the end of the season, he became sort of like the man of the hour, but it was in a way that wasn't satisfying to him. Mm-hmm. He's now got monetary success when they have that meeting at the end and they sign over an $800,000 check. that would be a nice sum of money now, let alone 30 years ago in 1985.
Yeah.
I saw that being a cool thing, but basically what we got him dealing with the success monetarily, but he doesn't have any personal stake in it.
Right.
He's built a boring machine.
Yeah. He basically won the lottery and isn't proud of it. Now he's got to figure out what his life is.
Yeah, I mean, he was involved in building that computer, but he didn't innovate.
Right.
And that was their main goal last season, which was taken from them sort of at the 11th hour. There was a comment at the bartender that he visited in episode 1. Where it's a reference to Amadeus, which is one of my favorite films. I thought it was really cool.
Nice, okay.
But they're like, I guess, watching a game show or something to that effect, and the bartender says, "Who's Salieri?" And he says, "Well, it doesn't matter. He wasn't Mozart. That's the whole thing in Amadeus." And I thought that was telling to Gordon, being that Mozart was the true genius, and Salieri was a guy that no one actually remembers. And in building this sort of boring PC, even though it's modern and people like it or whatever, or it gets the job done essentially. He's sort of dealing with like, I've had success, but I'm not an innovator.
Right. Poor me.
Yeah.
It's like, and nobody feels bad for him at that whole mutiny, right?
Right. Yeah.
One thing to cover as we segue into the second, obviously that episode ended with Joe's check getting ripped up, his life.
Yeah, we can get into Joe too.
Yeah, I mean, who knows where his life's going to go. I thought he stayed very calm, cool, and collected during that scene.
Yeah. When we get
overly, so.
Yeah, certainly when we get into Joe.
But doesn't this show, just kind of a random off topic, doesn't this show have the longest cold opens ever?
Yeah.
Like you're like watching it and it's like 10 minutes in and then they go into the title sequence and you're like, oh, I thought we had already started.
Yeah.
I don't know why they do that, but both times I've been shocked when the...
Yeah, I know, like, oh man.
Right.
We haven't hit the title sequence
we've done
yet?
3 different like arches and characters.
Yeah,
arcs.
exactly.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well, and then before we finish with Gordon, but we find that while he's at the the table with his girls, which last season he was a pretty absentee father. It's good to see him like handling the kids' lunches, making Donna's coffee, making her lunch, and he's got the girls and they're packed in the car already, and see him kind of taking care of business. He's got a little nosebleed there. It seems like there's some extracurricular activities.
Cocaine.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Which will lead into the title of the next episode.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Thought that was interesting. They kind of referenced that. Stan at the bar there says, well, we were so high on coke then. I don't remember how we got that done.
Yeah, and I was perplexed to his face when he was telling that story. Gordon's face, because I couldn't tell if he was like reflecting back surprised that he couldn't remember it or reflecting back that he was disappointed that that's what his life was during that moment. It was kind of what did you take it as?
I don't know. It seemed a little more like he was interested in that those guys that came into the bar, basically they don't have jobs now, they have new job leads, but the company being sold, Cardiff Electric, is kind of screwed over a lot of people.
Right.
And he's kind of apologizing to them there. So maybe seemed like he was a little more lost than that. But,
yeah.
But let's move on to Joe, Joe last season was like our sort of like alpha. He was our lead protagonist in the season. And he was sort of like a win at all costs kind of guy. And then after their PC was essentially stolen, he kind of goes on like his walkabout through the wilderness. And he was a master manipulator last season. So now we find him this season being very serene, very calm, very
much so.
Like essentially repentant for his sins of conning all these people last season. He came into Cardiff Electric and he basically sold them a line of a bill of goods that wasn't any good. He basically lied his way into the company, and by them cloning the IBM computer, they could have been in like a heap of legal trouble. Basically, they could have been sued by IBM, which it's a big no-no. So then the company ended up having to go with them cloning this computer, but without making it look like they weren't. So basically, he lost a lot of people their jobs. They never actually created what they were trying to go for in the first place. And he's responsible for the ruin of a lot of people's lives, which is why when he meets with Nathan Cardiff in that room, Cardiff is so vehemently upset at him and rips up his check.
Yes, he was. Was that boss a big character in the first season?
Yeah, I mean, he's basically Nathan Cardiff. Cardiff Electric was his company.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But it seemed like he's gone on some sort of personal journey at this point, because he's basically interested in atoning for his sins, I guess.
Yeah.
And then he's got the relationship with Sarah there.
Yes, which is his wife. Or his fiance now.
Now she is
yes.
at the end of the episode.
But wasn't there like a flashback, or what was that scene with Cameron? Was she playing a video game? What was that, a flashback or something?
That's a flashback to season 1. That didn't actually air, but it's a flashback to when they were together.
Oh, they used to be together.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
They kind of helped each other release tension.
Sexually?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
if we're going to coitus, as they might say.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. That's what some people call it.
Okay, good.
Mostly doctors.
Well, I have a medical degree. I don't. But it's
awesome.
Yes.
But I thought it's cool to see his character in a completely different place than he was last season. Even when they're talking with the group of friends, I guess it's like around a bonfire or something to that effect. He's trying to kind of come clean about what he did. It's true that had he never come to Cardiff Electric, that they wouldn't be basically a company that can be bought out by another company and basically, I guess, can go public or something like that. And everybody who's still involved or at least had a stake is going to get rich. That's true, and that's what Sarah's kind of pointing to with her friends. But then he seems to kind of want to come clean about, but that's not all the story, and she kind of shuts him up.
Right.
Which was cool to see that he is, I don't know, maybe really changed. It's not just some sort of thing that he's putting on.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say coming on the new season to not know. So it's just interesting to see. This is my first experience with him, and very calm, cool, collected, accepting. Quite an opposite to Gordon right now, who seems to be on this spastic, almost spastic journey.
Well, and let's talk about that scene where Nathan rips up the check. I mean, that was the old Joe would have sort of not sat there and taken it. He did sort of make sure to be like, well, something big is coming, and you're not going to be part of it, which seemed fairly insulting.
Right. But at the same time, like, here's $800,000. Oops, never mind. Sue us if you want to. And I'm sitting there thinking, dude, I mean, is Joe a rich man right now, like, without that check?
I don't think so. Not really.
I'm sitting there thinking, man, if somebody's ripping up an $800,000 check, I'm going to be going through a lot of emotions.
Yeah.
And maybe he's just playing these very subtly, which I get it. But, and just to say, like, oh, something big is coming. Well, Cardiff obviously has plenty of big things that they're doing. What do they trust him? I mean, is it just empty threats kind of that he's throwing out?
Well, at this point, they've sold off the company, and there's no more Cardiff. It's just being swallowed up by a bigger company.
But everyone's making tons of money, and it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, except for him. And I kind of wondered, or I guess I thought, that if he's going to sit there and let somebody rip up his $800,000 check, maybe he doesn't feel he personally deserves it because of what he did to people
That's
before.
the only thing I can think of, which means he really went through a personal journey there.
Yeah, and it seems legit. But then Sarah is basically an old fling or old girlfriend from, I don't know, college, high school, or something like that. Maybe they said high school, I'm not specifically sure. But we find out that her dad is an oil man.
So is this the intro to this character? This
is the first time we've seen Sarah. We don't actually meet Jacob till episode 2.
Right. Okay. Yes, that's it. Great. Well, should we bounce into episode 2, or is there anything else you want to cover in one?
Sure. I think there might be a few other things. Well, that was my question. Was he proposes to her at the end of the episode?
Kind of a lazy proposal. Let's get married.
Yeah, my proposal had a little bit more going on in it personally.
Right. You've proposed. You have a wife?
I do.
You're
have
married.
A wife. Yeah.
And yours had a little more fanfare.
I put a little more thought into it.
Yes. You at least drop down on your knee first.
Yes.
If you just do it standing, it almost doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, I name checked her first name, middle name, and then asked her to marry me.
Okay, right.
Yeah, which was sweet at the time.
That was sweet at the time.
But he just says marry me.
Right.
I thought he was kind of half kidding at the time.
It seems kind of cocky. Like, hey, listen. Like, if I wasn't sure the girl was going to marry me, I would be like, I better put on a show here to change her mind. So he obviously he's quite confident man.
But I was curious as to, he knows that her dad's rich, right? And when he says I didn't get the money, and she says it doesn't matter. I wondered just a little bit, because of the manipulator that he was before in season 1. is he asking her to marry him
Great point.
because things aren't necessarily working out for him at that moment in time?
Right, and I mean, probably money is a big thing, but too, like, yeah, if things aren't working out, like, let me have one thing in my life that's going to work out, like, at least this relationship. So that's a really good point. I didn't even think about that, but that's true.
I just wondered how serious it was. I mean, obviously we're going to find out.
We're going to find out, but yeah.
But also, in last season, he had a relationship with a man as well.
That's what you said.
Yeah, so he seems to play for both teams.
He swings both ways.
Yeah, which there's nothing wrong with that.
Sure.
But just interesting that now he's got.
He writes code in binary and he sleeps bisexually. That's so there's a lot of bi involved.
Absolutely. All right. Well, with that in mind, let's
go right from the binary.
Episode 2,
right.
New Coke.
New Coke.
Which also timely in the real world, which we can presently live in, was introduced in the spring of 1985. A lot of attention to detail there by our show.
Look, you know a lot of history.
I know Google.
You know Google. Okay, I've never heard of Google, but I hear it's helpful.
Yeah, it's a thing that the kids are using.
Oh, okay. Now, a theme that I saw in this episode that I briefly mentioned to you is everyone lost some kind of control in this episode, right? Both women went to get the venture capitalism financing, lost control. They couldn't do it because of they're just obviously a throwback to the sexism of that time.
Yeah.
Gordon, cocaine, loses control through drugs. Joe losing control, not getting the job that he's thinking he's getting. So everybody is just kind of figuring out, but it kind of wraps up near the end. So that seemed to be it was interesting that every character was going through something. Yeah,
no, I saw that too. I like them continuing this story of, I mean, I guess let's talk about Donna and Cameron again.
Sure.
But I like them continuing the theme of that they're supposed to be working together, but it seems like Cameron is making a lot of decisions without her. Including bringing John Bosworth back. Oh, we forgot that at the end of episode 1 that you see him come out of jail. Which Bosworth and Cameron, Bosworth was her boss at Cardiff Electric before. And Bosworth gave her a lot of fatherly advice. It was really sweet. I really like the job that Toby Huss is doing here in the show. But
it's interesting that because I just remember him from being the chef in Down Periscope,
right?
I was like, oh, now he's doing serious roles.
Yeah. Well, and he was the Wiz in Seinfeld.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's right.
Nobody beats the Wiz.
Oh, that's right.
But so really cool to see that she was the one who waited for him to get out of jail. I thought that was sweet. And so
the funny thing about that part is he walks out of jail. There's a huge blue van in front of him, and he takes him like 5 minutes to look in both directions as if he doesn't see this van with this woman. Like, okay, come on.
Yeah, she's
play the realism. It's right in front of you.
Absolutely. But
yes.
Yeah, moving things past her, like hiring John Bosworth, who worked at the company before. I really want to see these two women work together more.
Yeah. A little less pushing the conflict between them right now is so pushed. I mean, they have so much. I mean, it's cool that two women are in charge of a lot of men. You don't see that a lot.
Yeah, especially not in '85.
Yeah, and they're obviously very intelligent, and it just seems like it's not even that they have creative differences. It's more logistical and like lifestyle. Which couldn't be more apparent when they wore the different outfits.
Yeah, when they go to basically go try to get the money from Mark Zuckerberg, I think.
Right. Yes.
But she's. I like that they have the sort of talk outside where she's like, "This isn't what we talked about." When they had a couple drinks in the bar and kind of finally connected. It's a good way to have a business meeting. But,
right.
Yeah, I don't know. I want to see them continue to come together. I mean, obviously Donna's a mom in real life, and I saw them sort of coming together a bit, but she's still making these unilateral decisions by bringing in Bosworth, and it seemed like she kind of took somewhat what she said to heart. I don't know what you thought.
You mean when Cameron or Donna was like, "I'm going to bounce, like I'm going to quit if you keep doing all these things," and she gave her that look. Yeah, I mean, they had that whole journey, and that's the thing about Cameron's character is like one scene she's basically like "F you," and then like not much changes, and then she just like takes it to heart. So it's like in one moment she's willing to almost be like, you know what, if you don't like it, do whatever you want. But then in the next scene she'll be like, oh, you're gonna leave? Okay, I'm gonna like look at you and not want that to happen.
Because she
knows.
At the end of the day, she knows she needs her.
Yeah. So I'd like to see her character development this season is just a little less fighting every piece of change, and maybe that's going to come to some fruition or a peak. But
yeah, and I wonder how much that has to do with their age gap. I don't know what the age gap is in real life, or what it's supposed to be on the show. Obviously, Donna's got 2 kids and she's married, and Cameron's was like fresh out of college. I don't even think she finished college last season, so she's pretty young. But I think that in some ways Donna sees her like not really kind of like appreciating how far women have come at this point in time, at the very least.
Right.
Donna being able to experience that a little more as an adult, but in getting them to be taken seriously.
Right.
You know, getting them to a place where somebody is going to invest money into their company because they need to grow. That, you know, she makes the point before that all they have is kind of parallax and a colored game of backgammon.
Right.
So very riveting. But I see her, you know, as being like, look, you're not really appreciating what we need to be. Like, if we want to be considered as, at that point in time, as good as men or as capable as men are at this time and be taken seriously, then we need to, you know, cover all the stuff that we're missing.
Yeah, I mean, and even speaking in life experience, you know, as you get older, I'm not sure how old you are. Like, I'm 31.
I'm 23.
23. Okay, there you go. 20. But you do, I mean, as you grow older, you think, I'm going to always think the same way. But then you do get older and you see life differently based on your life. I'm sure once you have kids and you're married. And so I think there is going to always be that age gap. So I think they are, you know, I never thought about that, but now that you mention it, I think they are showing that that well.
Yeah, let's talk about Mutiny, because that's got like most of the episode. We can talk about each person at Mutiny, but I like seeing Bosworth come into Mutiny. I like his sort of old man gag as he kind of comes through
which
the
is
door.
an obvious throwback to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, right?
Didn't think of that. No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, he might as well have tumbled over.
Yes, exactly. It was the exact same thing.
Oh,
so
that's awesome.
We got to give a shout out to that moment.
Yeah.
Also, I love the stat of 10% of people have computers and 15% of those have modems. I mean, just to think about the difference.
Yeah.
And like, where did I mean, I think we got a computer in like 93 or something. I mean, who are these 15% with modems? I didn't even know about internet until probably got to be, I mean, up mid to upper 90s.
Yeah.
And people were having it. I mean, granted, that's a very small percentage, but
Yeah.
They must have all lived in San Francisco and New York or something.
It was cool hearing that dial-up sound.
The dial-up. Do you remember? Were you around during dial-up?
Yeah, no, I remember it. Yeah.
When you're like, I want to make a phone call, and your sister's like, no, I want to be online.
Yeah.
And life was horrible.
Couldn't be possible unless you had 2 phone lines.
Which they shouted out.
They did.
But yes, back to the mutiny, all the different characters.
Well, Bosworth is basically, I don't know, a man out of place.
Right.
It seems like Cameron is doing him a solid by giving him a job. There is something for him to actually do.
Did they give him does he have a job title? Did we catch that?
I don't know if they gave him a title.
I mean, what did they even lay out what he was going to do? I missed it, I think.
It seemed to be more to do with like books and bookkeeping and stuff like that. Things that he could basically understand.
Right.
Even last season, all the PC stuff went right over his head. He didn't necessarily understand it. He was like but I thought it was interesting having him sort of, she wants to do right by him because of that very sweet letter that they end up, making fun of him with later in the episode, which was a moment of them, like they pranked him before with the license plate, which
we didn't understand what that was.
Didn't really get that at all. But then they find that letter that he wrote to her, and the guy Lev there is doing his like best John Bosworth, which I thought needed a little work personally. And then of course he's gonna be around the corner.
Right.
And then having him come in and be like, finish the letter.
Right.
I thought that was cool because you find out what kind of man he really is. And also remembering that he, through all this stuff with the PC and them almost losing the company, that he lost a lot. He lost his wife, he lost his kid, and he basically took the fall for everyone there so that no one else had to go to jail.
Yeah.
But at the same time, at Mutiny, that he doesn't have a title because no one has titles.
Right.
But basically at Mutiny, being brought back in, but having really no place in that world. What do you think about that?
I mean, yeah, they really got to his no placeness at the end of the episode, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, that's one of those characters because he was not at all in episode 1 and just in episode 2. So, you know, for me as a new viewer, I'm still trying to figure out what my opinion is on him and how he kind of, you know, without knowing all that backstory. He's obviously like the guy trying to figure out life and the older guy in this young company.
Right.
And so obviously very symbolic of kind of probably how a lot of people, you know, I don't even think you probably have to go to jail or any of those things to feel like he does. And a lot of people feel like that now. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of they use him for. Like what is he symbolizing? Yeah.
One, he's basically saying, I need some time. I appreciate that you've given me.
What did he need time for though?
I mean, probably that same thing to figure out what his place is, if it's in that. Or if he's going to move on to something else.
Okay. Because that moment was super dramatic, but I was kind of confused on why it needed to be so dramatic on his part. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think a lot of ways he sort of viewed her as like a daughter. We actually have a really sweet moment where we find out her real name's not even Cameron. That was her dad's name.
Yes.
But even when she wrote to him, opening up as Catherine, you know, she's edgy and kind of has an FU attitude towards everybody, but she's real with him, which I think was really cool. But finding out that that's her real name was really awesome. But I don't know. I mean, he's sweet to her, but he needs more than that. He needs an actual purpose.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean that's definitely a theme in the show, right? Mm-hmm. Because Gordon needs a purpose, and I mean because he's like not doing anything, and he's trying to figure out
a lot of coke.
He's doing a lot of coke, but you can see he's the main reason he's doing it is because he's bored. I mean, he was doing it before because he was busy, and you wonder almost is he doing it again to just get that feeling? I mean, obviously he is to get that feeling back.
But so we also got the coders at Mutiny.
Right.
We have Yo-Yo, the big guy. We have Lev, the guy that did his terrible John Bosworth impersonation. Right. I'm forgetting one other name.
There's a scraggly hair guy.
Yeah, I don't know if he has a name.
Okay.
There's another guy. You guys are gonna kill us in the comments for not remembering these names, but. We don't remember them at the moment. There's a lot in both these episodes.
And as of yet, they don't serve much purpose as I mean, they haven't pushed the story forward too much.
I mean, they're pushing forward the whole, like, I mean, all these games that they have, which, by the way, checkers, a real fun game.
Now, who's going to invent number munchers? Because that's the one I remember from being a child, and I think that's the real innovator.
That's the big question.
That's the big question.
But save that for predictions, man.
Right.
And Tank Battle, which they find out there's a glitch with.
Yes.
But, I mean, basically these coders who are all smart guys, you know, and Cameron is easily, especially last season, she's easily the sort of genius of the group. You know, she is kind of like the real Mozart in some ways. But we're going to find out that there's someone probably a whole lot smarter.
New guy on the block.
You have Tom Rendon there.
Yes.
Who's hacked into their system and retooled their game and giving it away for free.
Yeah.
It doesn't make them too happy.
No, they're pissed. One, I think I would have could have been cast as that guy. First, I feel like we looked alike and same type. So I thought, where was my agent on that one? It was my first thought when I saw him.
I had the same thought, but we're not the same type.
Right, different time. But yeah, I mean, it's always interesting. These shows have by the way, there's someone smarter than everybody else, which is like this guy. Like you have a room full of coders, young people, middle-aged, older, but then there's this guy, the future. I thought it was confusing that they were saying that he was actually going to get fired. Like he's been playing a mental game with them really this whole time. Because they said, I don't know if you caught it, but they were like, they called the law firm and that he was about to be fired.
Right.
So this was really his only hope. But he played it masterfully.
And I wonder how much he knew about that, or if that's his true interest, you know, rather than, I don't know, working at a law firm.
Well, I'm thinking, what is this guy's like? Good hours. First of all, what law firm has good hours? Second of all, who wants to lawyer all day and then code at night? I'm thinking this guy's life, I mean, he's a go-getter. He must have Asperger's or something. I mean, how do you get so...
He's got that new Coke.
He's got that new Coke, I guess.
Yeah.
But it looks, and a possible interest, right?
Yeah, maybe.
For
Cameron, maybe, I thought it was cool to see a character that sort of can out Cameron, if that's even a thing.
Yeah, he stayed cool all the time, and that's what won. He was like, they were like, and he was like, whatever.
Which I wonder if that's a little bit more of that sort of misogyny thing with, when they go to get the money from, what was it, Bondum or whatever, and he kind of, really belittles them to be like, do you have any kids? Do you have any children? Do you have other interests? Well, you shouldn't have those because you need to be good at this.
Right, very Mad Men-esque.
Yeah, a little bit of that, which I'm like, isn't it 85? Are we not past that?
Yeah, we're barely past it now.
Yeah, barely past it. No spoilers for the end of Mad Men.
I haven't seen it, so I can't possibly spoil anything.
Yeah, then I won't.
Yeah, you better just I can say anything.
But shoot. Well, so Tom Rennan there is like that moment where he's talking to them, and she's like, "Well, didn't you think we were going to come after you?
Right.
Or didn't you think we'd sue you? No."
Right. But who knows? I mean, well, I think what we learned is we don't really know. I mean, I don't think we can really know what this guy's real intentions are, right?
Yeah. Well,
Does he want to work there? Do you think?
I mean, he's going to have to.
He's going to have to. But I mean, he obviously worked towards that. I just wonder, is it for a more deceitful purpose?
Oh, interesting.
Like, because he's done everything. He hasn't told the truth almost once.
Right.
And so maybe that's just a fun way to get in, or it's something else. We don't know yet.
He certainly does know what he's doing.
He certainly is a smart guy.
He found, this whole PBX thing, like basically how to get more users on the same line, which like kind of crashes their tank battle game.
Right. But he cooks chicken using a spatula, and I don't know if I trust that because haven't cooked chicken with a spatula in a long time. I don't think a lot of people caught that.
Is that not good to do?
I use I slice out my chicken, so I don't know what.
Okay.
I use forks and
a fork,
tongs.
not like tongs or something. Okay.
So just let's keep an eye out for other times to use the spatulas inappropriately.
Gonna have to stop doing that. But,
right.
I was I gonna say about I like seeing him sort of outplay her, but I think her true interest in him is that he is probably smarter than her.
Well, that's why I think she there was definitely some a glow in her eye, and I think it was like, ooh, these brains of yours are hot.
She likes to be challenged.
Yeah.
She had the whole thing with Joe last season, and he really challenged her. I mean, he was her boss, which led for a whole other dynamic there. But I think her talking to him and offering him that job, which of course she's going behind Donna's back again, which I like that our character Donna is smart enough to know that you already hired him.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
You already did. You know what? How much did you give him? $25,000, which, how much is that today?
It's probably 40, right? 40 or 50, maybe more?
Probably upwards of like 50.
50, yeah, probably double.
Pretty decent salary. I like her knowing that was already a thing.
Though I'm wondering, where are they getting all this money? How do they have all this money, this company?
I mean, they have the subscribers, which is their influx of cash. Which
they have a lot of employees.
Yeah, they do. I mean, they're really the only name in the business at this point in time.
Okay.
I mean, Bond him when they're in that meeting. He says, "I only took this meeting with you because my son is hooked on this game."
Okay, so it is pretty big.
Yeah, big enough for them to offer that kind of stuff.
But not big enough to get an office. They want to work out of the house.
I get the feeling that that's part of the Cameron philosophy a little bit too. You're like, yeah, we're cool. We're gonna work out of the house, build it from the ground up.
Yeah,
it's gonna be called Facebook.
Right.
Anyhow, so let's talk about Gordon. Being in the doctor's office. I did some coke a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of months ago. Really?
Right.
Did that nosebleed?
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah, and when that doctor's office was, we saw that after he did the binge of coke, right? We saw that already, so we knew he was.
Oh yeah, of course.
So well, I mean, we obviously saw him doing it for different reasons. I mean, and one, I think he's bored.
Yeah.
Two, almost, as you mentioned in episode 1, almost a throwback feeling to that feeling of like, ooh, like I'm going to do this, I'm going to get something done.
Yeah.
And he couldn't find something to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we still have the same thing. Like he's still dealing with the success. He did that interview in the first episode, and now he's basically got too much money and too much time on his hands.
Right.
Too much time to go pick up the girls from school and send his buddy
That
Stan
part,
to go
I
do
thought, again, you could almost take that little part and draw that out into a whole episode. Because who asks some guy that doesn't even know your kids to pick? I mean, he's obviously going insane in that moment, basically, right? Did that moment not catch you? It was like, whoa.
Well, he seems to be tapping that that keyboard real fast there, so he's under the influence for sure.
I mean, he's definitely under. But I mean, Coke, yeah, definitely speeds you up. But I don't know if it's going to make you not care about your kids in that. I don't know. I mean, I guess you get on that one-track mind. But I don't know. It's just concerning. It definitely shows. I thought that was going to spiral into a bigger problem than it did, but it ended up being kind of a quick fix.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that it didn't, because that would have been terrible. But
right.
But he's. I mean, I know he's. I guess he said they were doing the Coke so they could finish whatever the project was before, right? And now they've got too much time on their hands, and they're both doing Coke. And even Stan's like, "Hey, I thought we were only using that for blah blah blah." But now, well, it's just lying around. I couldn't, wasn't going to throw it away.
Right.
Which, I mean, I guess is some sort of, he's not wasting it at the very least.
Right. That is, though, I think that I'm sure if you talk to, like, addicts or something, that's what their line is all the time. Like, well, what am I supposed to do? Which, obviously, spoiler, he throws it away at the end.
Yeah. Oh, does he? Did I miss that?
You must have, because he found a little vial of it and he tossed it in the trash.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Maybe he's done with it for good.
Well, because I thought it was kind of rude when he was getting ready to have dinner with his wife. It's like, oh, special. And then she gives him that idea and he's like, oh, eat without me, bye. And she's just like, oh, husband. Like, I would have been like, can we have 20 minutes of dinner first? I thought we just led up to this.
That was a lot of Gordon last season.
Yeah, was it?
Like, hey, I got something great to do. But that's what he's searching for.
So obviously his journey, he had a journey. I mean, I think he had one of the biggest journeys this episode was because he went from like almost spiraling out of control.
Mm-hmm. Well, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. To control again and purpose.
Hopefully, we'll say that for predictions, but hopefully,
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Just really interesting. And don't send a stranger to go pick up your kids.
Never. Yes. Yeah. Come on.
Well, he's not a stranger. He knows them, but the girls don't know him. And thank God the school called and said, someone's trying to kidnap your children.
And can you imagine? Hey, kids, you don't know me, but trust me. That's
with
like
that stash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Porn stash. Yeah. That's like A1 thing you don't tell your kids to do is get in a strange car with a mustache.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that they didn't. That shows some responsibility from the school board.
Absolutely.
But let's also talk about Joe and Sarah, and then also her dad, I guess.
Yeah, Joe. So the episode kind of started with the dad, whose name is Jacob.
Yeah, Jacob Wheeler, played by James Cromwell.
Love
great
him,
character,
obviously. Yeah. When you just think of a rich dad who's kind of a dick, but kind of a nice guy at the same time, you're like, yeah, him.
Yeah.
And I admit, when they had that conversation, and he offered them the job. I'm like, okay, like this dude wants to marry your daughter. Okay, cool. But then, like, you're obviously a smart oil man. And so, like, you're going to just throw this bone. I don't know. Like, you're like, I don't trust you. I don't trust you. Can't you tell I'm offering a job? I was like, no, I don't think anyone could tell you were offering a job. You're just shitting all over it.
Yeah.
So while I was surprised that he ended up being in data entry, at the same time, I was like, oh, well, yeah, I guess that does make sense.
Yeah. Well, I wondered, at first it's right for him to test him out a little bit. Or at least to be like, well, how are you going to provide for my daughter? She is a writer. She's not really making that much money, and that's not enough for two.
Right.
But also answers my question a little bit about him proposing to her for maybe money and finding out that she won't let her dad help her out.
Right.
So maybe the relationship is real, or maybe the feelings are real. If it's an old flame or something like that, maybe the fire's ignited again. But thought it was cool to see him. He was this person in the position of power last season. He basically called the shots. And now he is in a data entry place where they don't even have the stuff on computers yet. Granted, maybe computers didn't have the capability of getting all this information before.
Right.
Who knows? But to see him basically have to start from the bottom. And my question was, how long do we think he can do that job?
Well, I'll tell you, I've done data entry, as I think many actors in LA have, and it is brutal.
Yeah.
I mean, especially in the age of put on your headphones and listen to the radio at least.
Yeah.
It's like you got nothing. But there was a glimmer there that I thought when he was looking kind of around the office and seeing the different things. I'm like, I wonder if he might use this opportunity if there's like, he's going to invent some data entry thing that makes everything better, or like he's going to use like sneak. You see that a lot in movies, like, oh, I'm in this low position. By the way, I invented this thing while I'm here.
Yeah, it's called paper.
Right. So I thought that could be what's going on, because I agree. If he's just doing that, but I thought there were some pretty strong hints that he's got a plan.
Yeah. Well, I wonder what that plan specifically was.
Right.
He's talking to Sarah again, which they have a lot of their serious conversations outside, it seems like.
That's true. I didn't think about that.
But he's talking to her. He's got those other job leads, and he says, he basically says that your dad offered me a job, and she seems resistant to that. We don't know exactly why yet, but we find out a little bit later. But I was like, is his plan? I was still questioning the relationship a little bit.
Yeah.
Is he manipulating her? I think it's maybe just because I don't trust him from season one. I think he's got to have some sort of plan. He always had some sort of device going on last season.
Yeah.
But is he really going to accept this data entry job?
I mean, I don't think he accepts it.
Mm-hmm.
There was part of me that thought he would just walk out. I thought that's what I would do.
The old Joe absolutely would have. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it just did really feel like he had a plan, and he knows the dad's effing with him.
Yeah.
And obviously, based on that gift at the end, like, he's going to enjoy kind of effing with him back and saying, okay, I see your game.
Mm-hmm.
And what other... and they played it up pretty strong that he has no other options.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
He does have no other options.
Yeah.
But I thought there was, like... First, it's like, I'm being tested here. And then he finds out that he's absolutely being screwed with, which he's been stewing about all day. And now that he absolutely knows he's being screwed with and tested, he's got to plan something to get back at him, basically.
Right.
But because of the atonement and the sort of being like repentant about everything and everyone he screwed over, maybe he wants to build something real this time, rather than build it all based upon lies, which is what it was before.
Right. Build something real, but I also think he needs to make a BAM, and I think he definitely wants to shock people. So I feel like though not without knowing any of the character, his mischievousness from the last season.
Right.
Based on what you've said and the little hints that he gives, I think we're definitely in for something.
Right. And before we wrap here, Sarah we couldn't figure out exactly first why Sarah was reluctant for him to take the job from her dad, but then we found out that she was married before to a guy named Peter, and he basically screwed her dad over.
Tons of stuff.
So it sort of makes sense for him to test the next guy along. That apparently
right. It almost makes you shocked that the dad even did it at all.
Yeah.
He's already been effed over once.
When he also knows Joe's track record.
Right.
Everyone knows about this thing with Cardiff Electric and how he screwed all these people over, but.
The only plot hole I thought it was missing in the data entry thing is, like, didn't they discuss salary before the guy walked in? And obviously the data entry salary is going to be way lower than someone that's working on whatever he was going to do before.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, maybe they don't talk about things in the 1985.
One last little tie-in. Speaking of the facts of life, Edna Fairchild made an appearance in this episode very quickly, if you didn't catch it.
Did not.
And she was, what was her name in the Facts of Life? She was like the main...
I never even watched Facts of Life.
Okay,
this is all your area.
That shows my age. So why don't we just move on to predictions?
Predictions. Well, they showed, obviously... Oh, I didn't even know. I forgot.
Yeah.
AfterBuzz TV.
Let the lights flicker. Maybe the lights won't flicker.
Oh, they did. There was a little flicker, I think.
Yeah, go ahead. What do you
Well,
got?
I was going to say they obviously showed a little bit of the next couple episodes at the end.
Yeah, it seems like it. Yeah.
It seems like, I'm obviously still trying to figure out what is the crux of this show. What does this show want me to feel? What is the feeling I have during the show? And it looks like it's about to get very dramatic. Look like there's a lot of yelling and fighting. So obviously things are going to go wrong. I think that Gordon is obviously going to insert himself in whatever way he can to try to get something going. He's already doing it, and he's going to ramp that up. Joe, I think, based on what you've told me and the little glimmer I saw in his eye, I don't think we're going to see him in that data room for more than 2 or 3 episodes. I think he's going to create, unless it's a whole season with data room and one, data room by day, but something else.
Batman by night.
And then,
Or Ronan the Accuser.
Right, exactly, yes. And then, obviously, Tom is going to become, I think he looks like a series regular for this season. And then something with him and Cameron, I think possibly, we don't know. And then for Donna, I don't know about Donna. Why don't you start with Donna? And I don't know if I have a prediction on her.
Well, one, you've covered most of the time. Most of the guys. No, I agree about Joe not being in that data room along.
Right.
That'd be a very boring season of Halt and Catch Fire. Him just entering data and trying to prove himself. He is going to try to prove himself, but it's probably going to be at beating the dad at his game.
Right.
However that is. I don't know exactly how that's going to happen yet. Gordon hopefully stops doing coke.
Right. Well, he threw it away. So we think for now it's over.
Well, hopefully he doesn't have a dealer to get some more. Maybe he'll call up the guy with the van.
Right.
Get some more or something like
Hopefully
that.
that guy comes back and gets some revenge. Breaking Bad style.
Yeah, I don't
Probably
see
not.
that happening.
No.
Donna, I think it's just more. I think Donna needs a personal success. She worked at Texas Instruments last season.
Okay.
She wasn't taken very seriously, as I'm sure was fairly common with women in the workplace back then. But I think that she has a personal stake in the company moving forward and growing. She had said all that stuff about we need to be improving our company, we need to be expanding our network, and she's troubleshooting that. And of course, the deal with the chat rooms that were new, which is that a thing still? People go in chat rooms to talk to people
Now?
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah,
I don't know.
don't either.
Well, because we all, I think texting.
Right, yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I think perverts do. I think that's the only people that are left.
Okay. None of those in this room.
None of those. No, this is pervert free. Actually, to work at AfterBuzz, you can't be a pervert. So FYI on that one.
Yeah, in case you're looking for a job here.
Right.
But,
Sorry.
Yeah, I see her having a personal stake in that, and I'm excited to see, like we talked about before, see the two females sort of drive our season here.
Yep.
Because I think that's very interesting to me at the very least.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see where exactly things go with Tom Rendon. Of course, he's going to give Cameron the toughest time because he seems to be
Super
a few
smart.
steps ahead of her. Except for now, she's got the trump card to be like, yeah, you were kind of fired.
Right.
So.
And will he turn to a villain? We don't. I mean, he could go south.
I kind of like that prediction.
Right.
Man.
Who knows?
I kind of do. But I also think you're right. I think that she and he are.
Or
going to
they
have
could
some-
start. And what's the old guy? What's
you said they could start and
for the radio audience?
Yeah, you touched
coitus
your
again.
fingers
So
together.
fingers. That would be the bisexual one. What's Jacob, the actor guy's name again?
James
The dad?
Cromwell.
He gave such, just to end on this note, I thought he gave such a great subtle reaction at the end when she goes, "Oh, you got this waffle iron," and he's just like, "I know who it's from." No facial expressions, and then just like, I thought, oh, it'd be so easy to give like a snide look or like, "I got this," but he was just like, "Yep."
Yeah, we can pick up enough. But who was the waffle iron from?
So I think it was from Joe, obviously.
Yeah, I thought so, but I thought like, did I miss some sort of waffle iron?
I thought
thing?
that too. I was like, I don't understand why, and it was shaped like a movie case, like a film.
Yeah, like
case.
a film reel.
Yeah, so I didn't know why.
But his daughter is a writer. I assume for film, possibly.
Right.
So is it from her? Because she doesn't like that.
I don't think
her and
so,
Joe had the conversation about.
Right. But that scene came right after that one, so I would think the wife would not have had time. I feel because I think that was a device saying Joe's taking control.
He's on to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But great acting. I love him as an actor, and I thought across the board acting very good on the show.
Oh
so
yeah,
far.
everyone's top notch on this show,
Yeah.
just like they were last season.
Yeah.
This show doesn't miss. The casting is amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's gonna do it for us.
That's it. Show one for us.
Yeah, man. Episode 1 and 2 recap. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you jump onto YouTube.com and subscribe to AfterBuzz TV, and you can never miss an episode of this podcast or anything else that we do on the show.
Yeah.
Dave, where can people find you online?
Please find me on Twitter at GoBlueDave.
Yeah, Michigan, baby.
Michigan, that's right. Grad of Michigan, 06, class of 06. And then
All right.
find me on Instagram at Dave Abed, DaveAbed.
Awesome. You can find me on Twitter at Isaac Johnson, Instagram, the Isaac Johnson. Didn't go to Michigan, but
That's okay. You don't have to.
Yeah, well, I can't now because I'm done with college.
Right,
But, yeah.
right.
But we'll see you next week. Actually, we're gonna tape on Thursday.
Yes, so next Thursday.
Yeah,
so
next
it'll be a little
Thursday.
while, but
yeah,
we'll be back.
yeah. Because Dave's gonna be out of town.
I'll
But,
be rafting in the Grand Canyon. So
Awesome.
if you don't hear from me again, look for my body in the Grand Canyon. Yeah.
Awesome. Have a good night.
All right, thanks, guys.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.